people are not cradling the rivers that are famous for cradling civilization. In the Middle Eastern nation of Iraq, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers are reportedly turning into dumps. Pollution, medical waste, sewage. A representative from the United Nations says 2/3 of Iraq's household and industrial wastewater is dumped, untreated, into the Tigris and Euphrates. And this is in a country where most people don't have access to clean water. To make matters worse, there's been a 4-year drought in the region, and dams built in Iran and Turkey have further lowered the two rivers' levels. The war-torn nation of Iraq doesn't currently have the infrastructure to fix the problem, but it is apparently working on a plan to address it. And that includes requiring hospitals to treat their wastewater before it's released. What remains to be seen is if efforts like that can help restore the beauty and benefits of Mesopotamia's rivers. Hi, I'm Azuz with the world from A to Z. We have an insightful and in-depth report for you next today. It's not just about crime in Washington, D.C., it's about the young people who often get caught up in it, and the mentors, the peers, and the former prisoners who are trying to keep them out of it. A food delivery driver interviewed for this piece said he doesn't work in the U.S. Capitol anymore after a group of people tried to steal his car. They weren't successful because neighbors jumped in to help, but 5 of those arrested were children as young as 13.
Sometimes I cannot sleep after the attack. I cannot sleep.
Some people in the community think the laws aren't tough enough to deter kids from committing crimes. Some of those kids who have and their mentors say the problems start at home. If parents and siblings aren't in the picture, there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to wear, and vulnerable children are influenced by friends and social media. It's a complicated problem, but there are numerous people working to address it.
Fear has been growing in the nation's capital, the result of a violent crime surge, and an alarming number of kids are caught up in it.
What do they say when it comes to carjacking or robbery? What are kids saying about it?
They really don't think now because all they think they doing is get in a car. They don't see the impact it do to other people.
They think it's not a big deal.
Yeah, they think it's not a big deal.
15-year-old Eddie, not his real name, is one of the kids that mentors in D.C. are trying to keep off the streets and out of trouble. Violent crime in D.C. rose 39% last year. Carjackings nearly doubled. The average age of those arrested, 15 years old. I meet Eddie and his friends at a courthouse where they just watched their 17-year-old friend get sentenced for attempted robbery.
Jail is not a game.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Marcellus Queen brings them here to see the consequences of crime. He's been working with them as a mentor since another friend of theirs was killed. He's trying to keep things from getting worse, what they call crashing out.
I've been in prison with men and they on their 10-year sentence at their 10 years on 30 years and they just wish that they can restart. So I try to make sure they don't have to get to that point where they have to restart.
Eddie tells me he was shot last year when he was 14. He's not in school, another pervasive problem in D.C.
Do you think there's a crisis right now with kids in D.C.?
Definitely a crisis. I never seen a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old pull armed robberies. I never seen 12-year-olds do the things that they had.
D.C.'s mayor declared a juvenile crime emergency, venting frustrations about the same children committing crimes again and again. D.C.'s council has advanced a new crime bill that could allow judges to hold kids in jail until trial when they're accused of certain serious crimes. We sit in on a conflict resolution class for kids as young as 5 years old. The hope is to break the cycle.
What brought you down that path? How it happened?
A lack of guidance, for real. A lack of guidance.
Down the hall, we meet 2 boys, 16 and 17. We agree to call them Dion and Steve, both previously incarcerated for gun possession and robbery. Court mandated to work with this program, mentoring other kids on conflict resolution.
A lot of people crash out because they don't have the right guys, they don't got mentors, they ain't got nobody to talk to.
They're among the many that say D.C. can't just arrest and prosecute its way out of this crisis. A city still experiencing hypergentrification and stark pockets of poverty, worsened by the recent weight of extreme inflation on struggling families, and social media that's added a toxic layer to many vulnerable kids' lives.
If they intervene way before to the point of crashing out, then it would never happen. Every single case you see, 100 days missing in school, no food in the household. Why does it have to take something so major to see, oh, okay, we're failing the kids?
New Hampshire is known as the Granite State because of its extensive rock formations. And we'd say Mr. Lounsbury's class totally rocks at Laconia Middle School in the city of Laconia. Moving southwest from there, we come to the bluegrass state of Kentucky, and that's where Miss Long's class is watching. Hello to all of our friends at Bell County High School in Pineville.
Upward the knowledge. Which of these nations has the southernmost capital? Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Between Reykjavik, Oslo, Stockholm, and Helsinki, the capitals of these nations in order, the city located the farthest south is Stockholm, Sweden.
But that doesn't mean it's balmy. Sweden's long, cold, cloudy winters, combined with the fact that it has almost 100,000 lakes, provide many opportunities and risks when it comes to ice. That's why learning to encounter and escape the danger is part of the country's elementary curriculum.
What do you do for physical education in a country where it's below 40 degrees a third of the year? Elementary students in Sweden are plunging into icy waters, but it's not for sport. It could be a matter of survival.
It was surprising. I was a bit nervous. Also, it was colder than I thought it would be.
How cold? 1 degree Celsius or 34 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, just warm enough to not be ice. It's called isvaksövning, a hole in the ice exercise that trains students on what to do if they fall through the frozen surface on one of the Nordic countries' many, many lakes. A lot won't even step out onto ice without a pair of picks, and those picks can be lifesavers. They help claw your way out without slipping back into the icy waters. The students are carrying a backpack that helps them float, but otherwise, this is as real as it gets. The students are fully clothed, and it has to be real because ice hole accidents are more and more common. 16 people died in Sweden after falling through ice in 2021, 10 the previous year.
Super important. It's really good knowledge, and it feels safe for us because they're always playing on lots of lakes around Sweden and Stockholm, so it's a good thing that they know it.
Training for something so scary takes a lot of nerve.
On this date in world history. A significant figure in U.S. history was born on February 22nd. In fact, he was born in 1732, before the United States was the United States. Talking about George Washington, who'd go on to become a Revolutionary War hero, a U.S. founding father, and something to do with the presidency, I forget. One thing many sports fans wouldn't forget occurred on this date in 1980. The young underdog U.S. hockey team found a way to defeat the experienced, renowned Soviet hockey team at the Winter Olympics. America's 4-3 victory was called the Miracle on Ice and is considered one of the biggest sports upsets ever. And news broke on this date in 1997 that scientists in Scotland had secretly cloned a sheep. Dolly was the first mammal cloned from the cells of another adult mammal, but she developed arthritis and lung disease and only lived about half as long as natural sheep. What in the world? An animal rescue officer in England was recently recording a fox in the woods when the animal got really interested in his phone and decided to take matters into its own paws. The animal made a sly getaway, carried the device to the woods, and even took a sort of selfie before moving on without it. The outfoxed officer eventually retrieved his phone and said the whole incident made his day. The officer was like, "That's fantastic, Mr. Fox." It was thinking outside the fox. And while the fox of the case clearly show its guilt, maybe the obnoxious animal just felt hounded by the pauper foxy and wanted to bury the story in its foxhole. It's just an example of cause and a fox. It makes a clever conclusion to today's show. I'm Carl Azuz. Join us again tomorrow for another fascinating edition of The World from A to Z.